Previously, I've made a video on how to shoot 600 plus at 70 meters. And today I'm going to make a video to show you how to shoot 650 plus at 70 meters. So if you've not watched that video already, watch that one first. And today's video is going to be a little bit more advanced, but particularly for those archers that are wanting to get up to that 640 and 650 plus level, this is going to be really important. I've got some main technique points that I want to get started with right away. So I'm going to share my screen with you here and begin with the first thing. The first thing that a lot of archers make a mistake with when it comes to getting up to this level is the set position. And I know I've mentioned about the set position before, but specifically with this, the issue with it is once you get to 600, 620 even, 630, you might think that you don't need to pay attention to your set position. But I want you to just watch how diligently here Lee Woo-suk is looking at his, not looking, but checking his bow hand position and checking his set position on every single shot, bearing in mind he's shot 700. So when he's raising his bow here, look how much care he's taking. Obviously he's just adjusting his watch. But with his hand, he's hooking, and then his bow hand there in the grip, really making sure it's in exactly the right place. This is quite quick, but what I want to mention here is a lot of archers at this point, they end up just throwing the bow off the foot, especially if those archers are coming off the foot. When you've got the bow on the leg, it's a little bit easier, but it's really, really tempting to just throw the bow off the foot here, right up here, and then just straight into the draw. So I see this so often where archers are going from the foot, where they just throw the bow up and they haven't really set their bow hand in the grip, and they haven't really checked their hook on the string either. And this causes massive issues. The reason for this is if you haven't set your bow hand in the grip, it's almost impossible to get your bow shoulder in a good position and to get it consistent. And if you don't get that bow shoulder consistent, then it's going to be hard to get good alignment. It's going to be hard to get a good expansion as well. And it basically throws off your whole shot. So almost every archer that I coach, I tell them at some point to slow down their set position and just spend 1 or 2 seconds more checking, making sure your bow hand is the same each shot and your hook is the same each shot. There is no reason that you need to rush this part of the shot in particular. Now, on this, if we go back here, if you go to my website, so while you're on the website actually, you can join my email list if you haven't already. Every week I send out some tips, completely free, exclusive content you can't get anywhere else, but I send out exclusive tips, maybe on mindset, on some training drills, some exercises, competition preparation. You can sign up on my website here to get that. But what I wanted to show you on the website is if you go to the technique section and then you go to set, hook and grip, this is what we're talking about. There's a whole guide here on the set position that you can read through, obviously, in your own time. But I want to highlight a couple of things because this is what we're talking about. In particular, I want to highlight, if we scroll down here, on the draw hand side, this thumb and pinky finger placement, these options that people have. Because a lot of the time, for example, when you're setting the bow hand, it's a little bit easier visually because you can check, for example, where your knuckles are here. You can check the pressure point and the pivot point. And it's really important to get a good position here. I'm just going to play this video actually, just to show you a couple of examples of making sure you're getting that set. So for example here, lifting off the foot, fully set, and then raise up. So you saw that little pause there. I didn't just throw the bow up and go straight into the shot. It was that deliberate checking of that position makes a huge difference, because if you don't do that, you're going to feel like the bow is twisting off in the hand, your bow shoulder's off, you can't get into good alignment, your expansion's not great. So that's really important. With the bow hand, it's a bit easier to check because visually you can look at it and it's a bit more solid in the grip. You can kind of sense it a little bit more easier. It's earlier in the shot sequence, so you can feel it as well. But if we go to the other side, a super common thing that happens is an archer will set their hook, for example, at the beginning of the shot. Their hook might look like this, the left example, with the thumb just kind of horizontal here, fairly relaxed, pinky slightly curled. It might look like this. And then by the time they get to full draw and they come into their anchor, they've moved their thumb and their pinky, and maybe now it looks like this. And the reason this causes issues is because if this is moving through the shot, This is going to basically change the tension you've got in your arm, your bicep, your back, and also it's going to affect what you can do in terms of your full draw position. A lot of archers struggle when they come into full draw. They can't get into the same place because they're blocked by their thumb here, or maybe by their finger, or both, and they end up not being able to get a consistent anchor. So you really need to make sure you set, the clue is in the name, you set your bow hand and your hooking hand at the set position and keep it through the shot. It's particularly important to make sure you keep the draw side, because this is the one that most often slips without archers realizing, and then it affects the full draw position and particularly the expansion. If your hand and hook is slipping during the expansion, unless you're Ojin Hyek, you can't do it. That's the one caveat. Unless your name is Mr. Ojin Hyek, then likelihood is your expansion is going to be compromised with this. There are always exceptions, but that is not the rule. So I wanted to highlight this. Either one of these three positions is fine, for example. I'm not saying, you can't have this position on the left or the position on the right. What I'm saying is you need to make sure that once you've set it, you maintain that to keep the tension in your shot in the right areas that you need and to keep that direction. So the set position is really, really important here, because that basically, as the name suggests, sets you up for the rest of the shot, the other parts of the shot, which I want to get into now. The second part of the shot, on that exact note, and we're going to go back to Iwoo Suk here, is the bow shoulder. And this is why it directly comes on. It comes, from that set position, particularly the bow hand side. But again, I just want you to watch here. I'm going to put this on half speed, I think, so it's a bit easier for you to see. But watch the banana. Watch Lee Woo-suk's bow shoulder here, where the little smiley banana is. And again, watch how deliberately he's setting that bow shoulder in a second. So he's going to do his hooking here, even more deliberately, because it's half speed. But he raises up. Now he comes into line a bit, sets the shoulder here, and then commits to the draw. So he's really making sure that bow shoulder is in a good position. The other thing as well is, if we go to here, when we have the raising up, you can see how he's directing forwards. If I get my brush here, I want to show you here. You can see at this point how he's directing forwards. There's pressure going forwards into the pressure point of the grip. So if we kind of just draw here, you've got the pressure point of the grip down here, and he's directing forwards, and it feels like almost a slight reach from under the arm here. This is the technique that you want, and this, again, being very deliberate about this is important, because so many archers, even 620, 630, I've even seen people shooting 640 or even 650 do this, but they will basically have the bow on the foot or on the leg, and they will just throw it up. And some days, here's a little story for you. Story time. You can actually shoot well like this, and some days you'll have incredible shooting and you'll feel like everything is just great. It's super easy. You don't have to think too much about it. And you can shoot maybe 650 or even 660, and you're not thinking about having that direction and really paying, attention to it. But have you ever had those days where you've had that, and then the very next day, your shooting is just completely different? It feels completely different. It feels rubbish, not the same again. And this is because you're not making sure you're going through the shot properly on every single day. And sometimes when you have a great day of shooting, it's going to be great no matter what. But you need to have a system and a process so that basically you have your technique locked down so it's more consistent day to day. Because you can be guaranteed when you're shooting well that you're going to be shooting well, and it's not going to be a problem. But when you have a slight off feeling, or maybe you've gone to a competition and you haven't fully warmed up, or all those kind of things, you need a way to get your bow shoulder in a good place. So you can't rely on just throwing the bow up and hoping for the best, essentially. It might work 10% of the time. I think there's an Anchorman quote about that, but we'll leave that for another day. But the bow shoulder here is particularly important, and this is why I just wanted to show you here on the raising up. And again, I'm just going to show you here. Watch the banana coming around and then committing to the draw. So he's made sure he's got that stable front shoulder, that stable base, to basically get a good strong shot before he's pulled the bow back. I also want to show you I've got a video here of Steve Weiler, which really shows this in a nice kind of angle because of the height of the camera. So if we press play here, I think I might do full speed. So let's go normal speed. So I don't know if you saw that. Let's have a look here. Watch that portion. So notice how Steve really, if we go half speed here, in this portion, watch the bow shoulder here. Notice how Steve raises up, and before he's committing too much to the draw, there's a little bit of drawing here happening with the draw side and the hook led by the elbow. But before he's done too much of that, he really gets the bow shoulder in. Now this is his setup position, and then he comes into the full draw position with the draw. So this shows, again, it's really nice. I'm just going to let it play through for you so you can see. Notice how deliberate he is with that bow shoulder position. Really, really good there. So I just wanted to kind of mention that, if you like, because that's really, really, it shows from that angle how important it is to get into that position. And on another topic as well, on another kind of note, if you want, mentioning Steve Weiler, you can actually get, through Online Archery Academy, you can get coaching from Steve Weiler. Yes, you heard that right. So as part of my Online Archery Academy members community, I'll share here with you, I've made this members community, and you can join this community, and for just £3.99 a month, you get exclusive videos from me, access to Q&As. People can ask Q&A questions here. I'm going to answer some of those in a few videos after I've recorded this. You get access to full-length videos on YouTube. So the video today is going to be the cut video, and there's going to be a couple more tips on how to shoot 650 plus. They will be accessible to members of my community. But if you want to upgrade from the $3.99 a month, there's a few different plans where you can get 1 coaching feedback a month, 2 per month, or 4 per month, so 1 every week, from Steve Weiler or Alec Potts. So I'm really excited with this because essentially it's really hard for a lot of people to get good coaching, and I think you have to be absolutely mental to not want coaching from Steve Weiler. So after seeing that video as well, if you want coaching from Steve Weiler, you can go to members. I'll bring it up here for you. members.onlinearcheryacademy.com, and this is where you join. So there's a video explaining how it works and everything. You can see the membership levels here as well. So $59 a month, you get 1 coaching feedback per month. $99 a month, you get 2, so that's 1 every fortnight. And if you want the 1 every week, that's $200 a month, $199 a month, to get exclusive private one-to-one coaching with Steve or Alex. So this is really, really, I'm just really excited with this because essentially if I was on the national team still, if I was shooting and competing internationally, even with having coaches on a national team, I would pay for this. So maybe I'm biased, but there we go. That is where we are. So I wanted to mention that because you'll also get full access to this long video today as well. So that's the bow shoulder. I wanted to mention about the bow shoulder and how important that is because it sets up the rest of your shot. Now let's move on to the next point as well. So I want to talk about a little bit the raise and getting to setup. So I kind of alluded to it a little bit already, but what I want to talk about in particular is the drawing part. So I've actually got another video I need to bring up here, but I want to show you from the overhead how this kind of looks essentially. So let's bring up the overhead now, and I want to show you this overhead here. Now this is really important because if you can't get an overhead, it's not the end of the world, but if you can, this will help you work on this. But the key thing I want to show you in this is the order, because I showed you the bow shoulder already, but the order that you're getting your alignment and your setup position in. So this is the third point, is the consistency of the, not just the bow shoulder, but the opening, this twisting. So the twisting here and the drawing to setup. So let's watch this in this video. Again, I'm going to go half speed for you. So watch the raise here. So raise up, get the bow shoulder in, and then commit round to this side, and then see that coming around fully at full draw. That's a point we'll get to in the community video. So that's going to be one of the other points, is this elbow coming around, which is really important. But watch the order. It's raise up, rotate and get the bow shoulder, and then commit to the draw side. And particularly, watch for the setup position, because this consistency of the setup is possibly one of the most important things. One of the things that a lot of people get confused with, or they don't get consistent, is this. Because if this is different, this alignment is going to be different. And if that alignment is different, when you then get to full draw and you try and expand in the same way, it's going to feel completely different every time. One time you might feel perfectly in line and your expansion is directed towards the gold and away from the gold, and it's really great. And the next time it might feel like you're expanding and your bow shoulder is pushing in as you're expanding, and then you collapse to the right, and obviously that's not going to be a good feeling on the release. Probably not going to be a good location where the arrow goes on the target. So I want to now show you, with this setup position in mind, let's go back to Steve again. Let's bring up Steve's video. So let's bring that there. And I've got another video from Steve. So when we have a look at this, you can see from this front angle as well how he gets that bow shoulder in line, and see now leading from the elbow from the draw side, coming around, and then this setup position is really good. I'm going to show you as well from this top angle again. But it's that raising up, getting into line, and see that little pause. Pausing there, so that's the setup, and getting that consistency is really important. A lot of archers maybe rush through that, or they change the location of where that is shot to shot and you don't even realize. So again, this isn't important if you're shooting 600 plus. This doesn't matter that much. But if one shot your setup is here, and then the next shot your setup is here, and then the next shot your setup is here, that's going to be completely different every time in terms of how you're getting to full draw, what it's going to feel like, how much effort you're spending, and then what your expansion is going to feel like. So it's really important to get that consistency. And it's also really easy to work on, because you can just check visually with a camera from the front and also from an overhead camera what that looks like. Finally, on this point, I want to show you again, we've got another video of Lee Woo-suk here that I want to show you, because this is from the front. And this really shows this nicely. So look again, this is the same day, but look again how, I'm just going to go back here, how he then sets the front shoulder and then commits to the draw. And the reason I wanted to show this is because you notice that he doesn't have a setup position. And this is where a lot of people get confused and they wonder what to do. But he kind of does have a setup position. So let me explain. He doesn't draw to here and then pause, but he does actually have a setup position where he makes sure everything is the same each shot and then commits to it. And that is actually much earlier for him when he goes here. So although his setup position isn't further back and fully aligned with his shoulders, he does have a consistent point that he checks. Most people can't do it this way because it puts a lot of stress on your draw shoulder here because of the far forward draw hand. So I wouldn't recommend this for most people. Obviously it works great for him, but I wanted to mention how there's different ways of doing this and not everyone has the same thing. So this is why you can't always just copy or follow, some of the top archers and go, I'm just going to copy this person's technique, because it doesn't work like that. Another example is actually if we bring up someone you might have seen before, Mr. Wu Jin. So if we bring up a video of Mr. Wu Jin, where is it? I think we want a bigger video of Mr. Wu Jin. You'll notice that he doesn't have any setup. He basically just raises and draws and then comes straight through. So you might wonder, why has he not got any setup? Or, for example, Im Dong-hyun as well. So that's Lee Woo-suk there. And then Im Dong-hyun again. He kind of just raises and goes straight into it and doesn't need a setup. Why do I need a setup when he doesn't? Well, the difference is he's shot about 6 million arrows, and he doesn't need to have a setup because he's learnt the position so well, and that's not part of his shot. However, the vast majority of people would benefit from having that setup position because it is so much easier to make your shot consistent. The final point I want to leave you with today is about the draw hand and the closeness in the draw path. So this is the final thing that I want to leave you with today. And we're going to go back to this video to have a look at that. Before we do though, I forgot to mention as well, if you haven't already, you need to check out my Online Archery Academy video courses. I'm the sponsor of this video because I can, so this is today's sponsor, but there's basically a beginner's course and an advanced course. If you're watching this video today, chances are the advanced course is probably more suited to you. But I literally go through step by step. If you like this video today, I go through step by step every single part of the recurve shot. I think there's about 5.5 hours of technique essentially in this course, as well as troubleshooting on each area and how you can work on this in your training. So if you want to have a look at that, I'd strongly encourage you to check that out. But the final thing that I want to mention today is about this distance here. So this might not seem like a big deal, but the distance between the draw hand and the bow shoulder is really important when it comes to this drawing path and getting that consistent, like I was mentioning. Because if your draw hand here, I'm going to start drawing arrows all over the place, but if your draw hand here is a different distance every time from your bow arm, then every time you draw, you're essentially going to be doing different amounts of drawing kind of into the face like this, which is what I don't recommend, or feeling like you're leading from the elbow and really using the scapula in the back. So if this distance changes here, it makes a huge difference on how you can twist and the final setup position that you get into. So if I press play here, you'll see where I come around, the draw hand here, you'll notice it goes from this position, I rotate, and it comes in closer to the face. If it was closer to the face already, I wouldn't have anywhere to go. I wouldn't be able to draw up and come in because I'd be hitting my face. I'd already be there and there's nothing to do. There's nowhere to go. So if I kind of just show you here, for example, if I raise up and my hand is out here and then I twist and I can come into my setup here, that's great. If I start and my hand is here and I try and twist, much harder. So this is where you need to be aware of kind of what kind of style of drawing you're doing, for example, and using that elbow to come around, because for most people, having that draw hand a little bit further from the bow shoulder and leading from the elbow and coming in slightly as you get to set up, that's going to make it much better. Because having it really tight in, I mean, I can already feel that's like really kind of tight in my shoulder, doesn't like that. And for a lot of people, they get a similar thing if they go too kind of close in, essentially. I've got a video somewhere that I'm going to bring up here of essentially having this too close and having, you know, the draw hand a little bit too close to the shoulder there. So I want to see if I've got that here. I think I've got, this is a not so good example where basically I didn't pay attention to what I was mentioning and then ended up reverting. So I worked, this actual video is after the good one, and I essentially went back. So this distance here is fine, but you'll see this bow shoulder line is not as good because I'm not doing enough twisting when I'm raising up here. This bow shoulder is not having that forward direction like I mentioned before that Li Wu Suk was having when I drew that red line before. It doesn't have enough forward direction here. So when I then go into the rotation, see, this setup position is different. So this video is taken after the good one, and bearing in mind this is me training every day and I still changed my setup this much without meaning to. Maybe this is some good evidence that the setup position can change. Even, I think at this time I was shooting probably about 650 plus, 660 maybe, and even at this point it's changing that much, and this is what was causing the day-to-day variation in my shooting. So maybe this is a good example to kind of leave you with, because it really shows how important it is to get consistent. And if you get it consistent, it's going to make the rest of your shot so much better. It's going to make your whole full draw position so much better, the chances of good alignment better, and then your expansion and release much better as well. That's it for today's video. I'd love to see you in the extended part of this that I'm going to post in the community in just a few minutes time, because I'm going to talk about this draw elbow coming around, the alignment and the release, which is probably the most important part of getting to that 650 plus. Hopefully I'll see you there. If not, I'll see you in the next video.